So we're continuing with the 4 Dharmas of Gampopa, and this afternoon we're going to conclude with the 3rd and the 4th Dharmas.
Donc nous continuons avec les enseignements sur les 4 dharmas de Gampopa. Et donc cet après-midi, on va terminer avec le 3e et le 4e dharma de Gampopa.
The 3rd Dharma of Gampopa says, on the path may confusion be clarified or dispelled.
Puisse sur le chemin, la confusion être dissipée.
So of course, this is why we practice. We want to overcome our ignorance, confusion, our delusion. And so we can look at what are these different levels of confusion that we are that we suffer from, first of all.
Et donc, nous connaissons la confusion et quels sont les niveaux de confusion dont nous parlons.
So on the surface level, we have a lot of confusion about knowing what is beneficial and what is not beneficial in our lives.
Which level?
On the surface level, the first level of confusion.
Donc, sur le premier niveau de la confusion,
we're confused about knowing what is beneficial and not beneficial.
Donc, nous devons savoir prendre ce qui est bénéfique ou pas bénéfique pour notre confusion.
So we all want happiness and we want to avoid suffering, and yet we're never really sure what actions and behaviors and attitudes will bring happiness and what will avoid suffering. We often do exactly the wrong thing for ourselves that puts us into more trouble, and we don't know how to do the right thing. So we have confusion.
Donc, nous voulons tous le bonheur, nous cherchons tous le bonheur, nous voulons tous éviter le malheur, mais nous ne sommes jamais vraiment certains qu'est-ce qui nous donne le bonheur, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour éviter le malheur. Et on a tendance à faire les choses erronées pour atteindre le bonheur. Et donc, nous ne savons pas vraiment quelle est les bonnes choses à faire pour.
So we often do the opposite of what will be helpful. And this is because of 2 things. One is that we're maybe not sure what really helps and what really harms. Maybe we just don't know. We're not clear about it. And of course, studying the Dharma helps us to understand more clearly what that is.
Et souvent, nous faisons proposer de ce qui serait bon pour éviter la souffrance. Et en fait, nous ne sommes pas certains qu'est-ce qui est utile et qu'est-ce qui n'est pas utile pour cela.
You say that studying the Dharma helps us find out.
Et donc, le fait d'étudier le Dharma va nous aider à réaliser ça.
But the second thing is, even if we do know, we find that we're so confused by our habits that we just don't have the mindfulness and awareness to make the right choices, even though we know what those right choices might be.
Et même si nous savons quelles sont les choses qu'il faudrait faire, nous sommes habituellement dans une confusion telle habitude, en fait, que on continue à faire ces choses-là.
So we know that we should not get angry and blame others and all of those things, and yet we still do it, even though we know it's bad for us, because we are completely confused by our negative habits. So we want our practice to help to shine some light into that darkness and bring more clarity.
Donc nous savons qu'il ne faut pas se fâcher, nous savons qu'il faut, nous savons nous savons, nous ne devons pas blâmer les autres, mais nous continuons à le faire parce que nous sommes confus par des habitudes négatives et que nous savons qu'il y a le Dharma qui peut nous aider. Dharma can help us, but then,
to make the right choices.
nous savons que le Dharma peut
Will help us to become more mindful and aware so that we can be less under the control of those negative tendencies.
le Dharma peut nous aider à être plus clair et pas être sous le contrôle des habitudes négatives.
So this brings us to explore a deeper level of confusion. We have a confusion about our thoughts and emotions.
Donc cela nous amène à un niveau plus profond de la confusion.
We are confused about the nature of our thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotions.
Oui. Nous sommes confus sur ce qui concerne nos pensées, nos motivations et nos émotions.
So we cling to our thoughts and emotions as being very solid and very real, and we react to them as if we are constantly being invaded and controlled by something very real and very solid. And this is why we suffer.
Et en fait, nous attachons à nos pensées, à nos émotions, nous prenons pour des choses très solides, très réelles. Nous sommes envahis par ces émotions et nous ne voyons pas clair.
And we cling to our perceptions internally and externally. We cling to the external world as being something very solid and real, and we react to it all the time very seriously, and so we suffer.
Et nous attachons à la perception des événements extérieurs qui, comme étant solides.
So because we don't understand impermanence and we don't understand emptiness, we create such a solid fixation about all of our experiences. And that is a very deep level of confusion that the Dharma is there to help us to shine some light into that darkness.
Et donc, nous attachons à ces perceptions extérieures solides. Et en fait, nous sommes parce que nous maîtrisons, nous comprenons bien l'équité.
Where did you get to?
I think I said,
okay.
It's clear.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, it's good. So our relationship with our own minds is a confused relationship. We are deluded about the mind itself and how it functions, and because of that we suffer.
Et donc la relation avec notre esprit est en fait très confus. Nous sommes confus sur notre esprit, et c'est pour nous souffrir.
So I mentioned before lunch how we react so solidly to our thoughts. And for example, one of the things we say is, a thought came into my head. We say this, don't we? And it suggests that we think our thoughts come in from somewhere else and invade us. And of course, that's not true.
Et comme je l'ai dit avant le déjeuner, nous avons tendance à réagir très solide sur sur la pensée qui entre dans nos esprits. Et en fait, on dit une pensée arrive de l'esprit.
Where does this come from? We think it comes from outside. Is it sort of waiting like a thief in an alleyway waiting to jump out and rob us? And because of that way of looking at the mind, we feel somehow frightened of ourselves.
Donc, tout ce qui vient, ce qui vient de l'extérieur, c'est un peu comme les voleurs qui nous regardent, qui nous attendent et qui se sont terrifiés par ça.
And the important thing for us to understand is that we don't need to react so strongly and believe in in the stories that our mind is telling us. It's because we react to those stories that we have samsara, we have all of our suffering.
C'est important créer agir par ces histoires composées, et c'est la raison aussi de nos souffrances.
Akon Rinpoche once gave the example of flying in an aeroplane, and to illustrate this point, he described how when you're in an aeroplane and you look out of the window and you see the clouds beneath you, they look very thick and solid, like cotton wool, and you might think the aeroplane is going to land on the clouds.
Et donc, à Gampopa, on est souvent un exemple de papillon, quand on est en papillon, grâce à la fenêtre, on voit des solides, très, et donc, on a l'impression qu'on va rire sur les nuages, quelque part.
So as the aeroplane is coming down to land, if you don't understand how things are, you might get very tense, thinking it's going to crash on the clouds.
Et quand descend pour atterrir, on peut être effrayé par les nuages sur lesquels on va s'écraser.
But of course, we know that the aeroplane moves through the clouds. The clouds look solid, but they are transparent.
Et donc, nous savons évidemment que nous allons passer à travers les nuages. On donne l'impression d'être solide, mais ils ne sont pas.
And it's the same with pleasant experiences. We might look at them a bit like a rainbow. It seems so colorful and so precious, but we can put our hand through it and we don't need to cling and grasp after it.
Et c'est la même chose avec, par exemple, les expériences agréables qu'on peut avoir. On peut avoir un arc-en-ciel, on passe même à travers, mais en fait, il arrive.
So when we are suffering, it is almost as if we are feeling that we are crashing into those clouds, and we get tense and we react as if they are very solid.
Et donc, tendance de souffrir du fait qu'on descend dans les nuages, hein, l'impression de s'écraser, fait souffrir. Et donc, on sait que les nuages sont comme les nuages.
So this is a deep level of confusion, that we take things to be real that the Buddha explained are not real, and because of that we suffer.
Et donc, c'est un niveau très profond de confusion parce que on dit que, sorry,
Buddha said we take things to be real that are not real, because of that we suffer.
donc le Bouddha nous a dit que nous prenons les choses réelles, celles qui ne sont pas réelles, nous prenons pour une vérité, et c'est pour ça que nous souffrons.
And this becomes quite stressful when people are new to meditation, because when we first start meditating, we might feel quite invaded by our thoughts, and we feel a bit like a failure when we meditate because there's so many thoughts, and how do we get rid of them? This becomes quite a struggle for meditators.
Et donc ça, c'est assez stressant pour les nouveaux méditants, parce qu'on se rend compte qu'on est envahi par les pensées. C'est comme si c'est un échec, on n'arrive pas à se livrer.
Maybe we've heard this expression, clear the mind, but this expression is very misleading. We're not trying to clear the mind. That's like trying to push all the thoughts away and go into an unconscious state.
Donc, l'expression de clarifier, clarifier l'esprit peut conduire à l'erreur parce que on essaie de, on peut pas essayer de pousser les pensées en notre esprit. Clarifier l'esprit.
So this creates a very stressful kind of meditation where we're sitting there focusing on our breathing, and then we feel the thoughts are very busy and very invasive, and we don't know how to push them away. And we kind of feel like a failure. We feel, I can't meditate, my mind is too busy. So then this becomes a whole struggle. But it's all based on confusion about what those thoughts are.
Et en fait, c'est une expérience très stressante, cette façon de méditer, et quand on a l'impression que les pensées nous envahissent et qu'on ne trouve pas, on essaye de nous pousser dehors. C'est donc une erreur de faire ça. C'est une expérience qui peut être vraiment horrible. Et c'est parce que confus dans la nature de ces pensées.
Actually, one of the best ways to overcome this problem is to realize that the thoughts make your meditation stronger, not weaker. They're actually quite useful.
Et la façon de surmonter ce problème, c'est de penser que ces pensées ne sont pas un problème, c'est renforcer.
Because when we're meditating on the breathing, for example, we're with the breath, and then the mind wanders, and then we come back to the breath. And it's the coming back that makes us strong, because what we're doing is we're teaching ourselves how to believe less in the thoughts, how not to be so controlled by the thoughts. Every time we come back, we're building strength. So if coming back is what makes you strong, you need to have somewhere to come back from. The thought that took you away is giving you the opportunity to come back. So it's not a problem at all.
Et donc, par exemple, quand on fait la méditation sur la respiration, quand les pensées arrivent, ça peut même être une force positive parce que on revient, on se concentre sur la méditation, une pensée arrive et on revient sur la respiration. Et donc, grâce au fait qu'il y a une pensée qui vient, on doit revenir et ça nous renforce chaque fois qu'on doit revenir à se concentrer sur la méditation. C'est sur la méditation.
So when we're meditating and we're with the breath, and then our mind starts to get distracted, our mind starts to wander, do we know our mind is wandering at the time, or do we find out afterwards? That's an interesting question.
Et donc, quand on fait cette méditation sur la respiration, et puis on commence à être distrait, l'esprit commence à se remonter, est-ce que nous sommes conscients du fait qu'on est distrait?
It's not that we're with the breath and then we see the mind step away from the breath and then go to a thought and another thought and another thought. It's not like that. It's more that we're with the breath and then we kind of fall unconscious and then wake up 5 minutes later on the other side of town. Like we got kidnapped. And then suddenly, where am I? Where am I?
Et en fait, quand on commence à se distraire comme ça, est-ce qu'on est conscient qu'on est en train de Et en fait, après quelques minutes, on est dans vitre, puis on se retrouve de l'autre côté the other side of the door.
It's like we got kidnapped and taken away, and then we wake up somewhere else.
C'est comme si on est kidnappé et puis on se réveille quelque part d'autre.
So it's like we fall asleep and then we wake up. So we're lost in confusion. And then at some point we realize, oh, I'm meant to be meditating.
C'est un peu comme s'endormir et puis tout à coup on se réveille et c'est comme pour une méditation, c'est comme on était perdu et puis tout à fait tout à coup on se retrouve.
But that's a really good thing. It means we're waking up inside our thoughts. So we're waking up from the confusion. So when we realize we got lost, that moment of noticing, that moment is meditation because we have regained our awareness.
Et en fait, ça, c'est une bonne chose, en fait, parce que quand on réalise qu'on est, qu'on est perdu, qu'on a perdu le fil, on retrouve, et ça, en fait, ça fait partie de la méditation, c'est ça la méditation.
So for many people, when they're new to meditation, they take that moment as a moment of failure. You know, they realize, oh, where was I? It's like I've fallen off the horse and now I have to get back on the horse and I'm bad and I'm useless and I've got too many thoughts. But actually it's a moment of success because you are back, you've woken up inside your thoughts. This is like waking up from the confusion. That is the aim of meditation at this stage.
Et en fait, pour les nouveaux militants, c'est difficile quand ils réalisent qu'ils étaient perdus. Ils ont tendance à prendre ça comme un échec. Et en fait, c'est comme si on est en train de. Si on est sur un cheval et qu'on tombe du cheval, tout ça, et donc il dit, enfin, mais en fait, il faut prendre ce moment de se réveiller comme un moment pas comme un échec, mais plutôt comme un moment de succès. Parce que on s'éveille dans la méditation et c'est ça c'est ça le vrai méditation.
So actually the meditation session at this stage consists of only three things. Sometimes we're with the breath, sometimes we're noticing that we got lost, and sometimes we're returning. And all three are elements of meditation. They're all good. So the thoughts enable that to happen. They're not a problem. They are part of the solution.
Et en fait, dans une session de méditation, il y a trois moments, trois choses. On est avec la respiration. On se rend compte qu'on est perdu, qu'on a perdu le fil, et puis on retourne dans la méditation. Et donc, en fait, tous les trois font partie de la méditation, et donc il faut voir les pensées qui arrivent comme solution. Ça va nous aider à progresser dans la méditation.
So if we can understand this, then we will feel less frustrated and invaded by the thoughts. We'll develop more clarity about how to handle our own minds. And this is all about clearing away our confusion about the mind and its thoughts. We're not trying to clear the thoughts, we're trying to clear the confusion about the thoughts.
Sorry.
So if we understand this process, then we will feel less frustrated, less like a failure, and also we are clearing away our confusion about the thoughts. Not trying to clear the thoughts, but trying to clear the confusion, like shining light in the darkness.
Quand on comprend ce processus, ça sera beaucoup moins frustré parce que ce processus, c'est vraiment de clarifier les pensées et comme Vérifier en fait la confusion, chasser la confusion, et c'est comme si jaillir l'initiation.
And then emotions is another aspect of this, where we again react so strongly to our emotions, we're controlled by our emotions, we act out our emotions, and that's how we create our world of suffering, from our misunderstanding about the emotions and how to handle them.
Et l'autre aspect, ce sont les émotions qui, en fait, on se sent contrôlé par nos émotions et on réagit par rapport aux émotions, on agit avec nos émotions. Et ça, c'est this is can I treat myself again? Then this means
I don't know what I said.
it's the same thing for the emotions that go.
We react to them very strongly. We allow ourselves to be controlled by them.
Yes,
we act out our emotions and we create our world of suffering.
C'est comme ça qu'en fait, en agissant comme ça, en réagissant avec nos émotions, en les contrôlant, c'est comme ça qu'on
we create all of our suffering.
C'est comme ça qu'on c'est comme ça qu'on crée en fait notre propre souffrance.
So the three main, they're called mind poisons, the three main tendencies are attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And we are so controlled by them because we think they're so solid and we allow them to rule our lives.
Les trois principaux en fait, de notre esprit, c'est l'attachement, l'aversion et la confusion. Et nous sommes contrôlés, contrôlés par ces émotions. C'est pour ça que par ces trois poisons, les trois poisons mentaux, et nous sommes totalement contrôlés par ça.
So, for example, with attachment, we think that our attachment will give us what we want. We're completely confused. We think, if I listen to this attachment, it will give me the result I want. But actually, it just creates more attachment and more hunger. So we're confused about how to relate to our attachment.
Et donc, par exemple, l'attachement, nous pensons qu'en étant attachés, ça va nous donner des bons résultats. Et en fait, on se rend compte que l'attachement crée plus d'attachement. Et donc, on est dans l'erreur.
With attachment, we crave things, we want things, and we chase them, and then we get them sometimes, but then we want more. The attachment doesn't go away, it just grows.
Et en fait, l'attachement, ça implique de désirer des choses, de vouloir des choses, ou bien de chasser d'autres choses. Et donc, en fait, on peut toujours, on est totalement confus par cet attachement parce que elle ne s'arrête pas et on veut toujours plus.
Desire and attachment are based on a feeling of lack, a feeling of incompleteness. And we're constantly trying to complete ourselves with people, objects, or places. But we end up feeling more incomplete because the attachment races ahead looking for the next thing. So we're never satisfied. It's like an endless hunger.
Et en fait, le désir, l'attachement, c'est l'impression qu'il nous manque quelque chose et qu'on veut obtenir, on veut compléter ça. Et on n'y arrive jamais parce que ça continue toujours.
And also the things that we get attached to, they are all impermanent. So we are relying on the unreliable. We are putting all of our hope in things that cannot really support us because they're all impermanent. So we suffer and we struggle. So because of that confusion, we make so much of a mess of our lives and so many problems for ourselves because we're confused about the nature of things.
Et donc, les choses qu'on désire, auxquelles on s'attache, sont en plus impermanentes. Et donc, on se base, euh, on se base sur des choses qui sont impermanentes, qui sont pas vraiment réelles. Et donc, cette confusion, à cause de cette confusion, on fait vraiment notre vie, dire, laisse
Okay.
les autres. Euh, Parce que c'est basé sur la confusion, toutes ces choses-là sont impermanentes.
So the same with aversion. Aversion can mean rejection, aversion, anger, hatred, finding things uncomfortable. It can be on many levels.
Et la même chose avec l'aversion. L'aversion, ça peut être le rejet, ça peut être la colère, ça peut être la haine, ça peut être l'inconfort.
Actually, attachment and aversion are like two sides of one coin. They rely on each other. When we're attached to one thing, we have aversion to another, and vice versa.
En fait, l'attachement et l'aversion sont comme deux en face d'une même pièce. Euh, Elles sont liées entre eux. On sait quelque chose et puis on rejette l'autre chose. Donc,
And so with aversion, we're pushing away, we're rejecting, we want to get something away from us, but that creates more of a habit. So we always have aversion. So we try to run to the corner of the world where we'll feel safe, and we find there's still something there attacking us, because the nature of aversion is it creates more aversion. There'll always be an enemy when the mind has aversion.
did you say it's a habit?
Habit, yeah.
Yeah. Et donc, l'aversion, c'est le rejet, c'est une habitude de toujours échapper, essayer de chercher d'autres situations, toujours cette même version qui revient.
And for example, with our anger, anger is a very powerful kind of aversion, very, very strong and very dangerous. With our anger, we don't know how to look at the anger, so we think there's only two options, either express it or suppress it. And both of these create damage to ourselves and others.
Par exemple, la colère, c'est quelque chose de très puissant, c'est très dangereux. Et on ne sait pas comment le gérer. Il y a deux choix, ou bien on exprime cette colère, ou bien on la supprime. Et dans les deux cas, suppresse, oui, c'est ça. Euh, Et dans les deux cas, ça endommage les autres, c'est un dommage pour les autres et pour
So with attachment and aversion, we get very obsessed with the object of our attachment or the object of our aversion. And instead of looking at the emotion or habit itself, we get very busy with the thing the emotion is about. And because of that, we never really get to the solution. We're looking in the wrong place. And that's a kind of confusion, isn't it?
Et en fait, aussi bien dans l'attachement que dans l'aversion, on est comme obsédé par l'objet de notre colère ou notre attachement. Et donc, on ne trouvera jamais, en étant obsédé par les choses mêmes, on n'arrive pas à regarder l'attachement ou l'aversion en soi. Et donc, il n'y a jamais une solution parce qu'on reste dans la confusion.
So one of the Tibetan words for negative emotions translates as something which afflicts us from within. From within.
Et la façon tibétaine d'exprimer ces négatives émotions, c'est klesha, donc c'est poison mentaux, ça s'exprime comme affliction venant de l'intérieur.
So our confusion means we don't look at the within, we look at the outside, we look at the object. And the same with positive emotions, because of course there are many positive emotions and they feel very nice, but there's still a problem in that we're looking at the object instead of the emotion.
Et en fait, le problème, c'est qu'on a tendance à seulement regarder à l'extérieur, le- s'occupe seulement de l'objet et on ne regarde pas seulement l'émotion elle-même.
So, for example, with positive emotions, our problem is that we latch on to the object of the emotion, and that is, we decided I can only feel good when that object is present. There's no sense of just having a positive feeling for no reason. There always seems to need to be a reason. So we are imprisoned by those objects. So with positive emotions,
Yes.
we get very obsessed with the thing we have the emotion about, the object of the emotion. So we have no sense that we can just feel happy for no reason. We have to feel happy because of something. So we are a prisoner of those objects. And so our positive emotions don't really help us because they just keep us imprisoned in that way.
Et même pour ce qui concerne les émotions positives, c'est obsédé par l'objet de notre émotion positive et en pensant que notre bonheur dépend de cet objet extérieur. Et donc, on est quelque part prisonnier de ces objets et ça n'a pas de sens parce que le-
So I mentioned attachment, aversion, and also ignorance. Ignorance is the deepest. It's the source of all of these problems.
donc on a parlé de l'aversion, de l'attachement. Et le troisième, c'est l'ignorance. Et en fait, l'ignorance, c'est ce qui est le plus profond, le plus puissant.
When we use the word ignorance in normal worldly speech, we tend to think of it more just like lack of information or lack of education. But in Buddhism, ignorance is much, much deeper than that, much more profound.
Quand on parle d'ignorance, nous avons ici tendance à penser que ça concerne un manque d'information, un manque d'éducation, et dans le sens où dans le plus d'ignorance, c'est quelque chose de beaucoup plus profond.
So, one of the words for negative emotions is obscurations or veils. This is another word used in Buddhism to describe these negative emotions.
Donc, une autre façon d'exprimer ces émotions négatives, c'est de considérer comme des obscurations, comme des voiles, des voiles.
So a veil is like something that hides the true face, or obscurations, the example could be like clouds in front of the sun, or a layer of mud or dust over a shiny jewel, something which is obscuring something else.
Et donc, en ce qui concerne le côté obscuration, c'est comme des nuages qui obscurent ou même la poussière de la terre qui empêche de voir ce qu'il y a derrière et de voir, c'est comme ce qui empêche de voir le vrai visage.
So this is actually a very positive description of the negative emotions because it suggests they are hiding something very beautiful and very pure that we are not connecting with, like the sun behind the clouds or the jewel under the mud.
En fait, c'est une très belle, une description très positive de ces émotions négatives parce que ça implique qu'on est en train de cacher quelque chose de précieux en dessous de ça. Donc, le soleil qui est caché ou par des nuages ou un diamant joyau qui sont invisibles en dessous de la boue.
So this is the deepest type of confusion. We are not aware of our own inherent purity, our own inner brilliance, our own inner light, and we're busy with the darkness that we think is so real.
En fait, ça c'est la confusion la plus profonde, c'est que nous n'avons pas de conscience du fait que notre lumière, notre pureté intérieure, et nous nous concentrons seulement sur le côté
So because we don't recognize our true nature, we fall into false ideas about who we are and the world around us, and we relate to everything through the lens of attachment and aversion.
En fait, le problème, c'est que nous ne reconnaissons pas notre vraie nature. Et nous tombons dans l'erreur de voir notre attachement et notre aversion.
So the third Dharma of Gampopa is explaining that we need our practice to really go to the heart of our confusion.
Et donc le troisième Dharma de Gampopa montre que nous devons pratiquer pour aller jusqu'au cœur de notre confusion.
And in order for that to really work, we need guidance, we need teachers, we need lineage, we need all the support so that we are not like the blind leading the blind. We need something to support us. That's why the teaching and the teachers are so important for us.
Pour voir clair, nous avons besoin, pour reconnaître notre vraie nature, nous avons besoin d'un enseignant, de maître, d'une lignée, une tradition de transmission qui peuvent nous faire éclairer là-dessus.
So, it's okay? Okay. So our deepest confusion is our lack of recognition of our Buddha nature. And this now connects with the fourth Dharma of Gampopa, which is very much about the Vajrayana level of teaching. So our deepest level of confusion is our lack of recognition and understanding of our Buddha nature. And this connects with the fourth Dharma of Gampopa, which is Vajrayana.
Notre confusion la plus profonde, c'est en fait notre incompréhension, incompréhension de notre vraie nature, la vraie nature du Bouddha, notre nature du Bouddha en fait. Et ça nous amène au chrétien Dharma de Gampopa qui concerne justement le Vajrayana.
The fourth Dharma of Gampopa says, may confusion arise as primordial wisdom.
Quatrième Dharma de Gampopa, c'est puisse la confusion se manifester, mais puisse la confusion se manifester comme la sagesse primordiale.
So in the third Dharma, we're talking about clearing away the confusion or shining the light in the darkness so we can dispel the confusion. The fourth Dharma is a deeper approach, which is the approach of Tantra or Vajrayana, which is that the confusion itself, if looked at in the right way, dawns as wisdom, becomes wisdom.
Donc, dans le troisième Dharma de Gampopa, on clarifie, la confusion par la lumière. Et dans le quatrième Dharma, c'est plus profond encore, c'est le Tantrayana, c'est-à-dire que la confusion puisse être reconnue comme étant la sagesse du monde.
So the word Tantra relates to, it sort of means continuous nature or continuity, almost like a continuous thread that runs through everything.
En fait, la signification de Tantra est en rapport avec la continuité, comme un fil, un conducteur qui poursuit.
It actually has a relationship with weaving. When you weave a cloth, there's one thread that runs through the entire tapestry. That's the symbol or the metaphor for Tantra, this continuous thread that runs through everything.
En fait, c'est comme un petit sage, de tricotage,
So what is being referred to here is the continuous pure nature of Buddha within all beings.
Parce que ça, à quoi ça réfère, c'est en fait la continuité de la pure nature de Bouddha de tous les êtres.
So no matter how much confusion, no matter how much suffering, whether we're in the hell realms or whether we're here or there or anywhere, it doesn't affect that continuous nature of Buddha. The potential is always there for all sentient beings, no matter how dark or negative or whatever. The Buddha nature is untarnished or unbroken, like that continuous thread.
Et donc, n'importe le niveau de confusion ou de souffrance, que ce soit dans un enfer, ça n'affecte pas la pureté de la nature du Bouddha, notre nature essentielle.
So the methods of Tantra are all about ways to find that wisdom in the confusion, find the light in the darkness, go straight to the essence of things, even within the confusion, to go straight to the heart of things.
Donc, la méthode du tantra, c'est justement de trouver la lumière dans la confusion, de trouver dans la confusion, dans les émotions négatives, même on trouve la vraie nature du Bouddha.
So the other forms of Buddhism, Hinayana and Mahayana, are often called outer Buddhism, whereas Tantra is called inner Buddhism. Sometimes they're called exoteric and esoteric.
Donc en fait, les autres écoles du Theravada et du Mahayana sont considérées comme extérieures, et donc ici le Tantra est plutôt comme intérieur.
And the difference is simply the difference of approach. In the other levels of teaching, there is this idea of clearing away the suffering, clearing away the confusion, on the path, following the path to eventual liberation.
Donc l'approche est un peu différente dans les autres voies véhicules. C'est de vraiment enlever, essayer de gratifier, d'enlever la souffrance, d'enlever la confusion.
Whereas in the Tantra, which is the deeper approach, the idea is that liberation is already there within us. We just need to connect with it. So that's why it's sometimes called the result jhana, or taking the result as the path, practicing the result. Rather than seeing the result as far off in the future, it's about connecting with the result in the practice.
Tandis que dans le Tantra, c'est un niveau plus profond parce qu'on considère que la libération elle est là déjà. Nous devons simplement connecter avec c'est en fait le résultat est pris comme le chemin.
So
C'est en fait aussi on appelle le véhicule du résultat.
So what that means is that in these deeper methods of Buddhism, one is identifying that within the confusion, within the darkness, the light is already there. That's why the fourth Dharma says, may confusion arise as wisdom. May we find the wisdom in the confusion, just through looking at it differently.
Et donc, j'avais oublié de dire aussi, donc on peut considérer les autres voies comme exotériques et le Vajrayana comme ésotérique. Et donc, dans ces méthodes plus profondes, on considère que la lumière, elle est là, elle est déjà là, donc on dit qu'on puisse la confusion se manifester comme la lumière.
So how does this work in practical terms? So we already maybe know about some of these practices where one visualizes deities. This is a very good example of what I'm talking about.
Donc, d'un point de vue pratique, dans le Vajrayana, il y a donc la visualisation des divinités. Et donc ça, c'est déjà ce dont on parle.
Now, when we use the word deity, it's maybe a little bit at first misleading because it sounds like the deities are the gods and goddesses that Buddhists worship. When you come into a shrine room, you see these pictures on the wall and you might think, okay, this is their gods, the Buddhists bow to these gods. But deity means something very different in Tibetan Buddhism.
Donc, cette question des divinités sur lesquelles on plusieurs listes, ça peut être interprété erronément comme étant des dieux, comme si c'était un culte des dieux, mais la divinité, dans le sens du Vajrayana, c'est quelque chose de très différent.
The word really means the natural divinity of the mind, the natural brilliance of the mind, and these deities are symbols of that. We meditate on these forms in order to connect with the Buddha nature. That is what's called taking the result as the path.
Et donc, c'est la brillance naturelle de cette divinité, la brillance originale naturelle de l'esprit même.
What did you say? Natural brilliance, divinity of the mind, and we meditate on these symbols in order to connect more directly with the inner essence of mind.
En fait, ce sont des symboles avec lesquels on se connecte pour arriver à ces niveaux beaucoup plus profonds.
And what we need to understand about these forms is that it's not to say that when we become enlightened we have to look like that. It's not like, oh, we're going to be green and sitting on a lotus, and it's much more subtle than that.
Donc, il ne faut pas penser que ces formes qu'on voit de cette divinité, c'est qu'on doit devenir apparaître comme dit par exemple la tour de retraite, et qu'on est assis sur le lotus, et tout ça, c'est beaucoup plus profond que ça.
It's very much about what Gampopa is saying in this text, confusion arising as wisdom.
Beaucoup plus comme Gampopa avait dit à ce texte, la confusion qui se manifeste comme la sagesse.
Because in the deity practice, we use our confusion to discover wisdom. We use the confusion.
Dans cette pratique de divinité, on utilise la confusion.
Our confusion about body, speech, and mind. We use our sense of body, speech, and mind to become the body, speech, and mind of the deity. We're using body, we're using speech, we're using mind in a very effective way.
Donc, dans cette pratique de divinité, en fait, on utilise corps, parole et esprit.
So we use our confused perception of reality as this solid body with sickness and pain and aging, and the speech, the sound that we react to so strongly, and the mind that we react to so solidly. We transform our perception of that into the body, speech, and mind of Tara or Chenrezig or the other deities.
Et en fait, notre perception du corps, de la parole et de l'esprit, en fait, on va transformer le rapport qu'on a avec eux, on les transforme, par exemple, on se visualise comme Chenrezig, comme Tara, avec le corps, avec la parole et l'esprit qu'on transforme en sagesse.
And we're using a very deep and profound form of creativity. A very deep and profound type of creativity. So the word creativity normally for us in the world means creating pieces of beautiful art, music, literature, etc., being creative. And that's a very beautiful aspect of our human nature, is how much creativity we can engage in. It's very wonderful. But in the Dharma, in Vajrayana, one is using a much, much more profound aspect of creativity. the creativity that we are all involved in is that we create samsara in each moment through perception.
En fait, dans ce sens-là, la créativité implique que nous créons le samsara même, la souffrance dans le samsara.
We are born in each moment into this samsara through our mistaken perception, and we are creating this with our mind all the time, helplessly because of our habits.
Et donc, c'est une perception erronée qu'on produit avec notre esprit en pensant que par cette forme de pensée habituelle de prendre ça comme samsara.
But we believe in our creation so strongly, but it's simply a relative manifestation based on our habits.
Nous croyons très fortement dans cette manifestation, ce samsara, mais c'est produit de
A relative manifestation based on our habits.
une manifestation relative basée sur nos habitudes.
So this is illustrated by the teaching which says when you look at a piece of water, you are a human looking at water, but if you are a fish inside the water, you are experiencing air that you breathe.
Donc, on parle, par exemple, de l'eau, l'illustration de l'eau, quand on voit de l'eau, nous avons une impression de cette eau, mais pour les poissons, pour eux, c'est comme de l'air.
So imagine if the human and the fish could have a conversation and have an argument: is this water? Is this air? Who's right? Who has the correct answer? It's just alternate perceptions based on conditioning.
On peut imaginer une conversation entre les humains et les poissons sur le fait une discussion sur est-ce que c'est de l'eau, est-ce que c'est de l'air. Donc tout ça c'est basé sur une conception.
So this is the confused creativity, the confusion and creativity that we are all involved in samsara.
En fait, c'est la créativité confuse dans laquelle nous sommes tous impliqués dans le samsara.
Now, in the Vajrayana practices, in the deity practices, which is one example of Vajrayana practice, one is using that creative habit in a very profound way by creating the deity and the mandala of the deity, generating, creating, being born as Buddha in each moment. So we're correcting our confusion and finding wisdom within the confused process of mind. The way the mind processes confusion, we find wisdom within that.
Et donc c'est pourquoi nous utilisons les méditations sur la divinité qui deviennent une pratique habituelle. On crée nous-mêmes comme des divinités, on devient des Bouddhas et on trouve la sagesse justement dans la confusion.
We sentient beings are born in samsara again and again and again, life after life after life, and we're born in various ways. There are 4 ways that we can be born in samsara.
Et donc nous sommes nés vie après vie dans le samsara, et donc il y a 4 formes, selon le Vajrayana, 4 formes de naissance.
So I didn't say in Vajrayana we're born. I said we're born in 4 ways as sentient beings. Yeah.
Donc si nous sommes nés, comme pas seulement Vajrayana, nous sommes nés dans le 5. Nous prenons l'essence de 4 façons différentes.
Either from a womb,
D'une matrice,
an egg,
d'un œuf,
heat and moisture,
de la chaleur et l'humidité,
or instantaneously.
instantanément.
So we humans, we know about womb birth,
Nous, en tant qu'humains, on connaît la naissance par une matrice,
and some animals too, like that. Egg, we know animals are born from eggs. There are certain types of bug, bacteria, etc., that are born out of humidity. And then in some of the realms, such as the hell realms, one is born, it's called instantaneously, which means one just appears. There's no kind of birth process. One is born immediately in that realm. So these are the four modes of confused birth. We're born in these four ways because of our confusion. What confusion? The confusion about our emotions, and the confusion about our concepts, and the confusion of karma. Emotion, concept, and karma. These three types of confusion create birth. Emotions, concepts, and karma. Now, in the Vajrayana deity practice, there are different ways of generating the deity that relate to the four modes of birth. For example, sometimes the deity is born from a syllable, and sometimes the deity appears instantaneously. And these all of these relate to purifying confused birth. So again, Gampopa's statement, confusion arises as wisdom. We are taking our confused habit of generation, creation, birth, we're using that in the practice to find the wisdom. So it becomes useful. And then in the deity practice, there are many events. There's the offerings, praises, empowerments, lots of different things happen in the practice. Offerings, praises, empowerments. There's working with sound through reciting the mantra. There's the sending out of light, the drawing in of light, many different events during the deity session. There's the transformation of the environment into the mandala or the palace or the pure realm of the deity. So all of these things correspond to the events of our life. Growing up, relating to others, living our lives, going through different actions. All of that is transformed into the life cycle of the deity, how the deity, the deities function during that session. And then what happens at the end of our life is we die, and we're all we're terrified of dying. And then when we die, our elements dissolve, and we go through that painful process of death, and then the bardo. In the deity practice, this is transformed through the dissolving of the deity and the resting in the essence of mind after the dissolution, and then the arising of the deity. This is all death, clear light, and bardo, all transformed through the stages of the deity dissolution.
Par exemple, quand nous, l'expérience de la mort, avec les différents éléments qui se sortent l'un dans l'autre, le bardo, dans toutes ces étapes de la mort se retrouvent aussi dans la pratique définitive qui se transforme et qui se dissout. Et donc, il y a le moment de rester dans la dissolution du nouveau divinité qui se manifeste. Et donc tout ça, ça correspond à des processus de la mort, de la prévenir et de la naissance.
So it's interesting to see how the practice of Tantrayana is using our confused habit, using that to find the truth. So that is why Gampopa says confusion arises as wisdom.
Donc c'est très intéressant de voir comment dans le Tantrayana nous pouvons transformer cette confusion, les habitudes, comment c'est transformé, et cela correspond au savant de Gampopa qui dit que la confusion se manifester comme la sagesse.
Another key element in Vajrayana training is the connection with the gurus of the lineage. That's so important in Vajrayana.
Un aspect très important de la Vajrayana, c'est vraiment un élément clé, c'est la connexion avec le maître et la lignée de transmission.
So one finds a lineage holding guru and has devotion to that guru, and they become a very, very key, essential part of the practice in Vajrayana.
Donc, ce qui est vraiment très important, c'est cette lignée, celui qui détend, le guru qui détend cette lignée, et le rapport de dévotion par rapport à ce guru qui nous transmet la lignée, c'est essentiel.
But devotion in Vajrayana is something very precise and very specific. It's something that uses a sense of separation in order to find a sense of non-separation.
La dévotion, le principe de la dévotion, il y a quelque chose de bien précis, très spécial. Et c'est sens de
Separation.
le sens de séparation, le sens de séparation qu'on a, qui devient le sens pour expérimenter la non-séparation.
Siddha Rinpoche once said, devotion is not like a mouse looking at an elephant. But it's more like looking in the mirror and seeing your true face. So a mouse looking at an elephant, this tiny mouse looking at this huge elephant and feeling slightly frightened of the elephant. I hope he doesn't step on me. That's a kind of devotion that is filled with fear, being in awe. You know this word awe, like awestruck. What would you say for? And so some religions describe a kind of devotion like that, God-fearing, and sort of this being bowed down to this great thing, but totally separate. We could never become that. The mouse cannot become the elephant.
Cette crainte de la
Whereas in Vajrayana, it's described as like looking in the mirror and seeing your true face. So the role of the guru in Vajrayana is to show us our true potential.
Et donc, dans le Vajrayana, c'est plutôt comme regarder dans le miroir pour voir notre vrai visage, ce que le gourou va faire, c'est en fait nous miroiter, nous faire découvrir notre vrai visage.
And so the term used a lot is guru yoga, and the word yoga means unity or oneness or indivisibility.
Et donc, le terme qu'on utilise régulièrement pour la pratique du guru yoga, ici veut dire l'unification, l'unité avec.
So the practice of devotion and prayer in Vajrayana, devotion to the guru, is actually more to do with mixing one's mind with the mind of the guru and becoming one. Using the outer guru in order to find the inner guru.
Le principe de dévotion dans le Vajrayana, c'est plutôt la prière et la dévotion, c'est pour mélanger l'esprit, les esprits du gourou et de l'élève.
And again, we have a very interesting process. We are using our confusion to find wisdom. Because our confusion makes us constantly relate to self and other. Our confusion makes us constantly relate to everything dualistically, myself and something over there. That's our confused perception. So because that is how we function, it means we are going to meet our Buddha nature through a relationship of self and other, ourself and the guru. Because that is how we function, so we meet the truth through that functioning. So we meet a guru who seems separate from us, and through the guru yoga practice, we use that separation to find the inseparable. So all of these things are wonderful examples of what Gampopa is saying in the fourth teaching, isn't it? Gampopa is saying, may confusion arise as wisdom. May we find the wisdom inside the confusion. It's like saying darkness is simply light in disguise. Darkness is simply light in disguise. And in fact, the four Dharmas of Gampopa can all be expressed through the metaphor of light. By the metaphor of light. So the first Dharma is, how do we turn towards the light? And it feels like that, doesn't it? Our life can feel so dark and so heavy, and then the Dharma is like light. How do we turn towards the light and stay connected to that light? And then the second Dharma is, how do we illuminate the path? How do we shine the light on the path so we know where we're going. If you're walking in the dark, you have to have a torch to find the path. So how do we illuminate the path?
Donc le deuxième dharma, comment illuminer notre chemin. On a besoin de lumière pour cheminer, et donc comment cette lumière peut illuminer notre chemin.
And then the third dharma is how we make sure the light shines in the dark, clarifying the dark, bringing light into the dark so that we can see more clearly.
Et le troisième dharma, comment la lumière peut nous éclairer dans notre chemin.
So an example of that is a very famous teaching in, I think, the sutras, which says you're standing in a dark room, and in the corner you see, it looks like a snake coiled up, and you're frightened, but then you turn the light on and you realize it was just a rope. So that's an example of light kind of chasing away the darkness, isn't it? But is it true that light chases away darkness? It's not really like that, is it? You turn the light on in the darkness. You're not removing the darkness. You're illuminating the darkness. So then this brings us to the fourth dharma, which says light and darkness are the same. The darkness is the light. Darkness is simply light in disguise. There's no separation between light and dark. So the summary of the four dharmas of Gampopa really is, how do we connect to the light and how do we stay there? How do we connect to the light and remain there? And the problem in our lives is that we always think the light is outside of ourselves. We're looking for light elsewhere. We don't recognize our own inner light. And we're living in times that are quite dangerous because the society we've built with a need for constant commerce and buying and selling and advertising has taken us further and further away from our inner light. Because now we are constantly being drawn into the light of our mobile phones. And what we see on those screens is very alluring and very addictive. And we know that the people creating those images know how to work and manipulate our psychology to draw us further in. So in a world where there feels like so much darkness and it feels like the light is outside, more than ever we need to find our inner light. And that is why in Tibetan Buddhism they always say that the Vajrayana burns even more brightly in dark times. In the dark times, the Vajrayana burns even more brightly.
Dans les temps obscurs, the light is
The Vajrayana burns even more brightly.
le Vajrayana brûle même beaucoup plus intensément.
In Vajrayana, they say the bigger the obstacle, the bigger the potential. So the more negative the emotion, the more chance there is to see its true nature.
Donc, on dit aussi dans le Vajrayana que le plus gros est l'obstacle, le plus possibilité il y a de réaliser la nature.
So I think we can stop there with the formal teaching and maybe now have questions.
Donc, nous pouvons peut-être nous arrêter ici avec l'enseignement formel et voir si vous avez des questions.
I feel that these four Dharmas of Gampopa are such a beautiful and useful teaching, particularly because they're so short, so you can kind of remember them, and you have these four very punchy, powerful statements that you can memorize and really think about a lot.
Moi, personnellement, je trouve que ces quatre évidemment, Gampopa sont vraiment merveilleux et expositifs parce que c'est court et on peut, c'est parfaitement possible de les mémoriser et de les appliquer dans la vie.
I find Gampopa's teachings very, very sort of, the way he writes, I mean, obviously I can't understand the Tibetan, I'm reading translations, but the way he writes is so sort of direct and clear and clean and pristine and very kind of precise. I really like that.
J'aime beaucoup la façon dont Gampopa écrit, je connais même pas le tibétain, mais quand je lis les traductions, c'est très direct, c'est très clair, c'est très pur, c'est très précis.
So there's the famous text, the Dakpo-tajen, which is sometimes called the jewel ornament of liberation. I think you studied that here recently, yeah. Yeah.
L'enseignement très connu de Gampopa, qui est le tapotage qui est l'ornement précisément.
Actually, Gampopa was the first monk in our lineage.
Gampopa était le premier moine de notre lignée.
He was in the 10th, kind of the 10th century in Tibet, around then.
C'est le 10e siècle.
He was the student of Milarepa.
L'étudiant, l'élève, le disciple de Milarepa.
So until Gampopa's time, the Kagyu lineage had been in the hands of some very eccentric and wild and kind of unknown yogis living in wild places like Telopa and Mapa and Milarepa.
Et donc, les prédécesseurs de Gampopa, les Kajupan, étaient assez, je veux dire, sauvages, qui vivaient de manière assez sauvage, comme Milarepa, comme Tilopa, Milarepa.
And they held very deep, profound, esoteric teachings that would not at that time have been able to be disseminated widely.
Et ils avaient des enseignements très profonds, ésotériques, qui à ce moment-là n'étaient peut-être pas possible de divulguer.
But when Gampopa came along, he brought something very important to the lineage.
Quand Gampopa était là, il a amené quelque chose de très
Important.
Il a amené quelque chose de très important dans cette vie.
Because he was a monk and he'd trained in the old Kadam tradition, the ancient Kadam school.
Il était moine et il avait étudié dans la lignée à Gampopa.
And then he found Milarepa and received the very profound and deep esoteric teachings, but was able to absorb them and then present them on the basis of all of these foundations that he'd learned from the ancient Kadam school.
Donc, quand il a rencontré Milarepa, il a reçu Milarepa ses enseignements ésotériques très profonds. Et donc, comme il était déjà un moine très érudit de toutes ces idées, il
And then under Gampopa's care, the Kaju lineage became very expanded and very big, like it is now.
Et après, sous Gampopa, cette lignée Kajupa s'est développée très largement.
So Gampopa had 51,600 students.
Gampopa avait 51 600 disciples.
And he also, from his time, the kind of sub-lineages developed.
Donc, depuis son époque, il y a des lignées, des différentes lignées, sous-lignées de Kajupa qui se sont développées.
And his main student was the first Karmapa, so from there we have the great golden rosary of the Karmapa lineage, all the way now to the 17th present Karmapa.
Donc, son principal était Gampopa, sous lequel nous avons développé.
But most importantly, what we have now is these incredibly profound and deep teachings, such as the 6 yogas of Naropa and the Mahamudra, based on a very well-established foundation of Hinayana and Mahayana training with Lojong, etc. All of that's because of Gampopa, bringing all of those things together, making it possible for people such as ourselves now to practice the path with a very clear structure and very clear guidance.
Et c'est grâce à Gampopa que nous avons eu le niveau aujourd'hui, grâce au fait qu'il a intégré des enseignements très profonds comme le 6 yoga de Naropa et Mahamudra dans les enseignements du Theravada et du Mahayana, de manière à ce que ça puisse nous arriver dans cette autorité chez elle. Donc c'est beaucoup plus facile.
So questions? Your hand went up.
Yeah, I have a question with regard to the, well, you said that the dark equals the light, and that the light, the dark basically is,
Light in disguise.
yeah, so you said that the dark is light in disguise, but that also means that the light is dark in disguise.
Well, these are relative concepts. Light and dark relate to each other.
Yeah, so actually, why should we seek for the light rather than find comfort in the dark?
If you find comfort in the dark, it means you found the light in the dark.
Vous pouvez poser votre question en français?
Oui, donc la question que j'avais, c'est par rapport à la lumière et à l'obscurité. Et donc, si la lumière, quelque part, équivaut à l'obscurité, et l'obscurité est la lumière déguisée, ça veut dire aussi que la lumière, c'est l'obscurité déguisée. Et pourquoi est-ce qu'on va chercher aller chercher vers la lumière au lieu de trouver du confort dans l'obscurité? Et la réponse était
La réponse était que vous avez
si on
trouvé
a
la
trouvé du confort dans l'obscurité, c'est la lumière.
So yes, so many people describe how when they experience tremendous pain in their lives or depression or sadness, when they learn to relax into the essence of that, they find the light in the dark. The dark was useful for finding the light.
Donc, en fait, les gens qui ont trouvé la lumière, ils ont trouvé dans l'obscurité. Donc,
So did you say when people have tremendous pain, depression, sadness, then when they learn how to sit within that without judgment, that they find light in the dark. So the dark is the light.
Et donc, les gens qui sont dans la souffrance, dans l'obscurité, qui ont beaucoup de souffrance et qui trouvent, they find comfort.
Well, they find comfort, but that it means they're finding light in the dark.
Quand ils arrivent à assumer cette souffrance, en fait, ils trouvent la lumière dans
But the important thing is we mustn't take these metaphors too seriously, because light and dark are still just relative concepts, but we're using it as an idea to give us a sense of transformation.
Donc il faut pas qu'on prenne ces métaphores comme à la lettre. Ce sont plutôt des symboles d'une dualité
But I agree with you that the dark aspects of our life, the misery, the pain, the suffering, can be incredibly useful if we learn how to be comfortable within the discomfort. If we learn how to stop trying to push it away, stop trying to get rid of the pain, but relax into the pain with no judgment, then the pain, which is sort of dark, is light. That's the kind of idea behind that philosophy.
So it's not about
Let's just translate this first, and then I'll come back to you.
J'avais tout un effort du tout pour dire que si on peut trouver dans des moments très durs, très obscurs de notre vie, si on peut trouver, essayer plutôt que d'essayer de suppresser, de fuir, de plutôt assumer, être vraiment dans la souffrance, voir le vivre calmement, on arrive à la lumière, on voit la lumière dans l'obscurité.
yeah, it's just so it's not about rejecting the dark.
No.
Learn from whatever it is.
Well, it's about non-judgment. So if we don't judge if we don't judge the darkness as a bad thing, then it has become light.
It's an experience.
Si nous ne jugeons pas l'obscurité comme quelque chose d'obscur, mais on peut trouver la lumière.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
I have to refer to my personal practice in relation to this strong negative emotion. So I realize that if I have some reasonable negativity, I can meditate and find a place of peace and stillness, and that feels really good. So okay, maybe I am attached to that feeling good because there are very strong impulses like strong which arrive
Strong, sorry?
Impulse.
asana impulses
Huh?
that I find very, very difficult to control. And I do meditation, I do my practice, and the best I can get is a place of neutrality. I don't see the light, and that neutrality is not a light, it's not a place of light. The best I can do is not to be identified with the negative emotion, but that neutral place, I realized that is, it is again attachment of not finding
Okay, should we translate your question?
En français?
Si j'ai des émotions négatives, je peux, la plupart du temps, des fois méditer et trouver de la stabilité. Mais si les émotions sont très, très, très négatives avec de très forts impulses, le maximum que je peux arriver avec la méditation, c'est un endroit de neutralité. Il n'y a pas de la lumière, il n'y a pas de la clarté, il y a très neutral. I don't know where I am.
So I think the important thing is to just practice every day, no matter what. That's the instruction. Practice every day, no matter what. No matter how you feel. Feeling good, feeling bad, doesn't matter. The main thing is the consistency of approach.
En fait, ce qui est le plus important, c'est de pratiquer tous les jours, n'importe comment on se sent, mais c'est vraiment le plus important de continuer la continuité, la consistance, de toujours pratiquer.
It can become a little bit of a trap if we are practicing specifically to change something. What am I going to do with this emotion? How can I fix it? That becomes a little bit of a trap. It's more useful just to practice every day and let what comes come and let what goes go, and have this kind of consistency of approach rather than trying to target the practice onto certain events or things or feelings.
Donc il faut pratiquer tous les jours, mais c'est un peu, what is it, a trap,
It's a little bit of a trap if you try to specifically practice for this or for that or with this emotion or that emotion. It's more important just to practice every day and not pay too much attention to how it feels or what's happening, but just keep going.
Donc, il ne faut pas tomber dans le piège de vouloir préciser pourquoi on fait une telle pratique, mais plutôt pratiquer tous les jours régulièrement.
The reason I described it as a bit of a trap is because it can mean that you start to give the emotions too much power, because you're sort of saying, here's the problem, now I need the medicine. So you're sort of in a way feeding them. It's more important just to practice regardless of how you feel. And it's quite useful to practice when you feel ill, for example, because then you're not allowing yourself to feel imprisoned by your feelings. You just keep going. The main instruction is don't judge. Whatever happens, don't judge. Just keep going. So maybe that's a good phrase for you to hold in mind: non-judgment, non-judgment, awareness and non-judgment. Any other questions? Okay, well, I would like to do a little practice together. What I find very helpful when one has been studying a teaching is to spend a little time digesting the teaching, because it's a little bit like eating. You've been fed lots of food, and now we have to digest the food. So we're going to sit together, and what I would recommend is that you think through the 4 Dharmas of Gampopa, one by one. You can remember them. Turn the mind towards the Dharma. The Dharma follows the path. On the path, confusion is clarified, and confusion arises as wisdom. Think about them, and think what were the main points of those 4. So they are, what you mean what they were. So the mind turns to the Dharma. The Dharma follows the path. On the path, confusion is clarified. Confusion arises as wisdom. So just work with those in your mind, think about them, and what did you learn today, what are the most important points. Just try to kind of allow it to kind of percolate inside you, like digestion. Sonam di tamje zebani toni niebe dranam pamje ne chega naje balan drobaye sibe solen drowa shoi jamba pawo jita jemba dan kondo zambo de an de jende de da kunje jeso da lo jing gewa di da tamje rapto ngo sanje koso niebe jin la dan jin ni min jor dembe jin la dan gendo mi je dombe jin la Jedang Owa Mulan Droba Joy Chanjo Semjo Rimboy Maje Panan Jejo Jin Jeba Nyamba Meba Dang Kone Kondo Pelwa Shu